Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. My name is Cherrie Gardner, and I have the pleasure of sitting with Councilman Austin Thompson, who's running for re-election of the city of Lawrenceville. How are you doing today?
I am excellent. Thank you so much. Excellent. Just glad to be here and looking forward to a great re-election season.
That is fantastic. Yes. Yeah. So tell me about your journey with this past 4 years that you've been in office.
Well, it has been amazing because, when I first started, I had an election that I lost in 2019. And when I was elected in 2021, that started this 4-year journey of serving on the city council for the city of Lawrenceville in Post 3. And it has been an amazing journey. I work with, 4 other incredible individuals. There are 4 of us on the city council and then the mayor, right? So 4 council members and the mayor, and we comprise the legislative body of the city of Lawrenceville. And, before I was elected, you sit in meetings and you observe meetings, but you never really get to see the behind the scenes, right?
Right.
All of the other business that goes on, the calls, the additional meetings, the work, because it is work.
Right.
And I have to tell people that, because what we do as a city council, we do a lot of reading, emails and documents, and we attend a lot of classes. We attend several conferences a year, and at each conference we're taking different classes. It can be ethics, managing the finances of a city, economic development, dealing with how to govern, to develop and grow the youth, working with different constituencies and so on and so forth. There's so many different classes. So this 4 years has been a tremendous experience. It has been exciting.
Wow. Wow.
It has been exciting. People ask me, "You're going to run again?" Oh, yeah.
With enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah. There's no hesitation. Oh, yeah. Because, all the things that you set out to do, because, it's government, right?
Right.
It's we pass laws in the city. People ask, what do you do as a councilman?
Right.
What does the council members and the mayor and the city council do? We pass laws in the city in the form of ordinances. Okay. We review plans for rezonings and special use permits, and different policies that we are setting for the city, right? So you have your U.S. senator, U.S. representative, your state senator, your state representative, just as they pass laws for the country and the states, and you have your county commissioners that pass laws for the county, right? We as a legislative branch in the city, we pass laws in the city.
Okay.
All right, so there are 3 branches of government in the city. You have your administrative branch, your legislative branch, and your judicial branch, just as you do with the U.S. and the state. All right. So we comprise the legislative body that we pass laws in the city. We try to keep smiles on the faces of everyone, right? There are 35,000 residents in the city of Lawrenceville that we have to make happy.
Wow. And that's quite a balancing act.
It is quite a balancing act. It's quite a balancing act because when we're looking at policy, we're looking at, different documentation and initiatives that we have to review, to discuss, to pass and vote on. There are some that are going to be for it and some that are going to be against it.
Sure.
So you as an elected official, you have to engage everyone. Those who are for it and those who are against it.
Right.
You have to engage everyone because you have to get the voice of the people, because you're elected by who? The people.
Right.
Right. And you are a representative of the people.
And something I found really unique about how your approach was it coffee with the candidate that you were doing, really putting yourself out there so that people could engage with you, so you could really be a reflection of the people overall?
Yes. And when I started that, because now it's Coffee with Councilman Thompson, right? When I started that in 2019, right? Okay. Later in the campaign, right? Coffee with the candidate, inviting residents and future constituents and business owners to come and sit with me, have a cup of coffee with me, right? And then we can discuss Lawrenceville, the things they want to see, what they wish for me to consider in my work as a councilman. And, just let's talk Lawrenceville. How do we want to see Lawrenceville grow, right? Because you don't want someone in the seat of decision-making, making decisions for you without your input, right?
Yes.
You want those who are going to make decisions for the city or the county or the state or the country to engage you, the voter, the constituent, the resident, right? You are a stakeholder. So you want your elected officials to know exactly how you feel about certain things. Right. So this way they can discuss them. They can sit with you and discuss them, right? So Coffee with the Candidate, after I was elected, transitioned into Coffee with Councilman Thompson. And going into its fourth year now, it's 2 Saturdays out of the month, the first and third Saturday from 9 o'clock a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m. So the residents, constituents, business owners, any stakeholder that has Lawrenceville on their mind can choose one out of the 2 Saturdays or both. I've had constituents come on both Saturdays. They came the first Saturday and then they came back the third Saturday, right? So you can choose one of the 2 Saturdays, and you can sit with me for the full 2 hours. You can sit with me 1 hour out of the 2 hours, or whatever time it takes for you to have that conversation with me. Because without me knowing how you feel about certain things, it's not that it's hard for me to do my job, but I want to be able to make decisions based on how the residents feel about policy. Like fees being increased,
right?
Millage rates, occupational tax for the business owners, right? If we're doing infrastructure development on certain street corners, putting in sidewalks and widening the roads, we want to know if this is enough. How much more are you looking for us to do? Right? Is there anything that we can do as a city council, or I can do as a city councilman, to increase the quality of life for you as a resident, right?
And tell me about maybe two things one thing that was in your original vision plan, and how that, one of your success stories with your original vision plan, and maybe an idea that you got from Coffee with Councilman and how that grew. Because I'm interested in seeing from your vision as well as from the people and what they gave to you from their feedback.
Right. Quality of life was one thing.
Okay.
Quality of life was one platform point in my vision plan from when I ran the first time. Okay. And what that involves is making sure that we have sidewalks for people who want a walkable Lawrenceville, right? Making sure that we have safe sidewalks, safe streets, making sure that we have traffic lights that work, making sure that we have street lights that work, making sure that our sanitation is being picked up on time. That's also important. And then when we talk about politics, we say all politics are local, right? We think that we can go to a U.S. senator or a U.S. congressperson, for matters that affect you on the local level. But that's your council member. That's your county commissioner, right?
I see.
We have a Lawrenceville lawn area now that is wonderful. You can come with your family. We have a volleyball court. We have a dog park. You can bring your dogs and they can play in the dog park. It's all about creating an environment that's for the family, right?
Right.
And we want that in Lawrenceville. I wanted that. So I'm glad to be a part of that development and that growth in our city, right? We have a wonderful amphitheater that we continue to grow and have host events. That's wonderful, right? The other thing is, livable spaces. We're developing housing for 55 plus residents.
Okay.
We have a Lawrenceville Housing Authority that continues to work with us and city developers for more affordable housing. We have those options, because we want folks to consider living in Lawrenceville. We want folks to not just think of Lawrenceville as some place to come and have a great meal or, watch an award-winning show at the Aurora Theater,
right,
or the Lawrenceville Arts Center. But we want to make sure that you're considering Lawrenceville for your residency. And that's important. Economic development was another from my original plan, my original vision plan. And what that entailed is just making sure that we're adding businesses, restaurants. We continue to improve the economic development of the area. Because developing a local economy, it takes residents, it takes businesses, and it takes for that dollar to circulate. And that what drives that local economy, right?
Right.
With that, you have healthy businesses, successful businesses. You have businesses that are able not only to grow and scale, but you have also businesses that are able to create employment, job opportunities, And I'm also glad that we have the Gwinnett microtransit.
I was going to mention
that.
Yeah. Because you basically pushed that forward, didn't you?
What I was pushing for when I was elected, before I was elected, was a shuttle service through Lawrenceville that would connect to the downtown area, Georgia, the Gwinnett Justice and Administration Center, the hospital, Northside Gwinnett, which used to be Gwinnett Medical Center, but now, Northside Gwinnett. It would connect to all the shops and the businesses. And for those who are unable to catch Uber or Lyft or just couldn't get around as much, right? This helps to increase mobility.
Right.
And once you have residents who are able to get out and shop and spend money and have disposable income to spend with businesses, this helps the businesses in the area. This helps them to get to the court, right? To handle their court business. Helps them to get to the hospital and the medical offices around the area, Right. So there's a lot now that they can touch. And when I was proposing that shuttle service, I had no idea at the time, Gwinnett County was introducing microtransit, a shuttle service around Lawrenceville and Snellville. So I'm just glad that, I was at the forefront of that.
Yes.
Wow.
I
was at the forefront of that. It also takes you to Georgia Gwinnett College. There's also a stop at Gwinnett Technical College, So I don't want to take full claim to that, but, the plans were drawn and submitted and published before we ever knew there was going to be a shuttle service. So let's just say I put it out there in the universe, right?
I put it
out there in the universe.
Yes.
And I'm glad to see it because now I am a full-time rider of Gwinnett County Transit, because I'm without a vehicle. So that's how I get around.
Oh, fantastic. Yes.
That's how I get around. I've been going on like 10 months now. 10 months I've been on the Gwinnett micro shuttle and micro transit shuttle, Gwinnett transportation, So I get to see how the shuttle service is working. I get to see if enhancements need to be made, because it's all about servicing your customers.
Yes.
It's all about the riders and the customers. So I'm able to at least contact someone and say, hey, let's consider adding this. Let's consider making this change. And I feel like, hey, if being in this elected in this elected position, I have some influence, to speak to individuals and say, hey, let's make this a better service for the riders, not just for me.
Right.
So we're great. So these are some of the things that I proposed in my first vision plan, and I'm just glad to see so much change from 2021 to where we are now in 2025 in Lawrenceville.
Amazing, especially with all of these things that you're saying, you're embodying the concept of boots on the ground.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You're not like far off and aloof from the day-to-day activities, but
yes,
even
ma'am.
as a rider of the transit system, all of that, like that's phenomenal.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that keeps you up to date.
Yeah. And not a lot of people know, before I ran for office, I was a community activist.
I was
right?
going to ask that.
Yeah, I was a community advocate.
Want to do this role?
I spent 33 years in the Caribbean community. I'm originally from Georgetown, Guyana, South America. So I was very involved in the Caribbean community, that's not just the Guyanese community, but the Caribbean community. And I've always organized youth symposiums, food drives, clothing drives. We did Feed the Homeless. Mm-hmm. I worked with a young lady in our community, Samaritan's Feet, where we gathered used shoes that we donated to homeless shelters and those types of things. So I was always boots on the ground or sandals on the ground, because sometimes in the summertime I wear sandals. So I was always boots on the ground, always had my feet to the ground, always had my hand on the pulse of what's going on in the community. So it was easy when I transitioned into an elected position that I continued having boots on the ground, right?
Right.
And what I tell, because I also speak to young people who are considering running for office. And I always tell them, I said, look, there's this thing, we have this program that says, it's called Run for Anything, right? Where we're encouraging young people to consider public policy and running for office. And the first thing I always say, never do it for yourself.
Wow.
Never step into an elected position for yourself. It's always about the people. It's always about those who elected you and those who didn't vote for you, right?
Really?
So you got to serve everybody. Yeah. Again, you're serving everyone, right? Those who voted for you and those who did not vote for you, because you are a representative of that district. So you have to represent everyone. You have to listen to everyone, whether there's a mutual agreement on policy or not, right? And that's what makes you an effective public servant, because you're serving the public. You're serving your constituents. You're not cherry picking who you're going to serve, right? There are 35,000 residents in the city of Lawrenceville. Mm-hmm. I invite all 35 residents to sit with me, call me, text me, have a conversation with me, because I want to know what you're thinking and I want to know how to represent you. We might not always agree on policy, right? But what we can agree to is having a conversation, right? Agreeing to disagree amicably and having a civil discourse. And that's what I'm all about.
How do you juggle all of that? Because don't you also still I know before you were doing the conferences and the networking functions for the businesses. Mm-hmm. How do you juggle all of that influx of calls and duties of a councilman? And do you still do the other business related activities that you were doing before?
I joke with people, right? Long before there was a PMP, a project management professional, I was managing projects. I was managing schedules. Yeah. I was managing budgets. It's just more formalized now.
Okay.
I don't like to consider myself the authority on multitasking, right? But I've always been the type of individual who saw opportunities and worked to connect myself with people and initiatives and opportunities, like my business conferences that I've scheduled and organized and executed for 7 years. Right. And it would have been a continuation of the conference if it wasn't for COVID, right? Because that interrupted the conference, right? the networking events. So what I'm doing now, I'm having what's called Business and Brew. It's a networking event that I schedule several times out the year. The next one is during National Small Business Week. And, I have it on Slow Pour, one of the breweries in the city. Okay. And I invite business owners. I invite entrepreneurs, business owners, business professionals, to come and attend. And it's just an opportunity for us to socialize, come together in a social environment and build relationships.
Right.
Right. Build leads, find out who's doing what, and who's doing what in the city. So I have folks outside the city who come.
Right.
So I've been doing that long. I've been doing that long before I got elected. I just brought a lot of it with me into my elected position because now, not just a networking event, just 2 weeks ago, I had my 4th annual Women's History Month panel, Women of Influence and Leadership. I have upcoming next week is my AAPI, Asian Americans, Pacific Islander professionals. And we have some really astonishing people in our community, and we need to hear their stories.
Yes. Yes.
We need to hear their stories. Sometimes we see people every day or we don't see them, but it's nice when we have a platform, right? And we have networking events. I'm an event guy. I love events. I love doing events. I love bringing people together. I'm a people person.
To say that.
I'm a people person. I'm an ambassador for the Women's Chamber. Hey, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
The Women's Chamber of Georgia, led by Jill Goodrich. I'm very proud of that, because I support people who are doing good things.
Yes.
In different spaces, whether it's business, whether it's politics, whether it's STEM, whether it's in media, you name it, in the arts. I support people who are doing great things for our community. And, sometimes, they say, give them their flowers while they're still around. I love to give people their flowers. I love to celebrate other people. I can celebrate me, but that's boring. I can celebrate myself, but that's boring. But I love celebrating other people. I love to highlight and create spaces where we can celebrate people, right? So I've done that with the Caribbean community. I'm doing it again this year. I've done it with the African community. I've done it with the Hispanic community, and now I'm doing certain things with the Bosnian community, and it's great that you see all these different cultures in Lawrenceville, Bosnians, Caribbean people from different Caribbean countries, people from various Latin-speaking countries, Latin America. You have people from Bangladesh and Vietnam and India and Pakistan and not just. And when you talk about Eastern European, not just Bosnians, but you have Serbs. You have Montenegro, those from Montenegro, and so on and so forth. And it's great. You get to meet all these individuals. They're doing wonderful things. And this is why we say, because Lawrenceville has been recognized as a city by the League of Cities as a city that represents DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right?
Well, yeah.
I was
going to say that.
Not just in our workforce, but also in the city, right? We've been recognized as a city that has respect for diversity, equity, inclusion. Right. And that's something I literally, spoke about before coming onto the city council. Right. Is that making sure that I can add to whatever we're doing to making sure that there's equity and inclusion for everyone in the city, for all of our residents, for all of our businesses. And I'm glad that we represent that.
How do you feel about how that is going to look in the future with how the climate has changed and things that are happening with the new presidency? Yeah.
And there, and honestly, there's been a lot of conversation about that, the rolling back of DEI and so on and so forth. We have to embrace these things. You have to embrace them honestly, candidly, and with a sense of reality that we can have healthy discussions about how we're going to continue relationships and building businesses and building bridges right? We have to have honest conversation about these things. I am confident, very confident. We have a city manager that's doing great work in the city. We have a mayor who is working phenomenally in his position. In addition to me, there are 3 other council members, and we work together. We're also been recognized with a city of civility, right? And what that is that we have taken an oath to have civil discourse, to be respectful, and a pledge to listen to one another, right? And as a city of civility, you need that type of element, right? In terms of the dynamics you want to build for the city. We need that because as we're working together, we have to set policies. Now, on the council, we don't always agree. We don't always vote the same, right? But at the end of the day, we respect one another, okay? Because, my vote might not be the vote of another council member, and that's okay because you know why? Because that's your democratic right. Right. As an elected official to vote how you see things, But after the council meetings are over, we are civil with one another, Good. I don't always vote the way the mayor votes. The mayor doesn't always vote the way I vote. But hey, he always offers me a ride home after council meetings, Yeah. He doesn't lose me on the way home, but I say we have a great team. We're a city of civility. We're a city that respects diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm glad to be a part of that. And as a man of African descent, as a man who is an immigrant to this country, from South America, from Guyana, South America, I am so proud and honored to be in that role where I help to guide some of these conversations and give people a fresh outlook. Well, let's consider this, let's consider that. Right. Especially when we're having discussions about affordable housing. Yeah. And developers that are, coming with development plans for the city, whether it's townhomes or houses, single family homes or whatever communities they're proposing to build. We're having those discussions now about affordable housing. Good. We're having those discussions about how can we look to a certain percentage of the development to be affordable, because we have retirees, we have new graduates, right? They're different pockets of the market, right? You have the retirees, those who are just out of college, right? So you have those who are retiring from work, so they're on a fixed income. Those who are coming out of college, they're not at that income they will be in about 10 years, right? And then you have those in the middle, right, who are struggling to at least keep a job, who are struggling to get to that next promotion, get to that next higher salary. We continue to see the cost of living going up. We continue to see not just the cost of the grocery stores, but at the gas station and everywhere. Right. Housing, apartments for rent. So we need to have those discussions about affordable housing. We cannot, remove those discussions. So I'm glad to be a part of that discussion where I can add that to the table. And this is why we say representation matters. Right? Representation matters because you need to elect people who are going to represent you. Right. So I have to represent those who are concerned about affordable housing. I have to represent those who are concerned about the rates of their rent increasing by certain levels. Like going from you're paying $1,200 at one point for a month. Next thing you know, you get your lease to sign it. Next thing you know, your landlord want to give you an $1,800 rent. That's a $600 increase. Right. You struggling, to find that extra $600 a month just to put food on the table. We need to have those discussions, right? We have to have those discussions. So as a city councilman, as part of the city council, I am glad to represent my constituents. I'm so glad to represent Lawrenceville. I stop by all the businesses. I visit them throughout the year. I have a great relationship with one of our officers, Captain Salvatore Ortega. He and I visit all of the Hispanic businesses in the community. And what's good about that is before Captain Ortega came on to the Lawrenceville Police Department, I used to visit all those businesses, right? I visited them several times in the last 3.5 years. But what happened is that in the beginning, I'm not fluent in Spanish. I speak a little Spanish word here and there. Right. But when you speak Spanish, you say hable inglés. Someone says no, and say poquito inglés, poquito español. And you try to move and navigate a conversation, right? And even with that limitation, there's some sort of communication between you and the non-English speaking person. But to let them know, at least letting them know there's somebody looking out for them, that there's somebody representing them, right? But when Captain Ortega came onto the Lawrenceville Police Department, we made an agreement that, hey, together we'll walk the Hispanic community, right? And we'll visit these Hispanic businesses. Many of these businesses, they pay taxes in the city. They have children who are going to school, right? The schools, right? So they're not only paying business taxes, they're also paying, personal taxes, right? So they need representation. So they need to know that, hey, Councilman Thompson is looking out for us.
Right.
And not just the Hispanic community, everybody in the community needs to know Councilman Thompson is looking out for them. Because I want people to know we don't have to speak the same language, right? We don't have to look the same, right? But respect and representation is what matters.
I have to snap to that. Sorry. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. That's so important.
That is.
So what are some of the things that you're looking to implement in this upcoming, once you get elected for your next term?
Well, right now, this week, as we speak, there is a meeting with the city manager and city leaders. We have an airport in our backyard, all right, Briscoe Airport. It's county owned and county managed, but it's in the city of Lawrenceville, Briscoe Airport. So 3.5 years ago, I had a meeting with the airport management team. There were 2 individuals, and we met at the airport. And I wanted to see how many flights were coming into the airport, and folks who are visiting Gwinnett County, they're visiting Lawrenceville, they're visiting other areas, they're flying in, because, you have a lot of businessmen and women who have access to private jets, private planes, whether they own them or lease them or, they just charter them for the flight, they're landing and taking off from the airport. But how many of them are actually spending money in Lawrenceville? How many of them are actually spending money in Lawrenceville? So what I did, I had the meeting with the airport managers. I got the number of flights that arrive weekly, daily, weekly, monthly, just for the weekend. And I said, well, that's a healthy number of visitations to the airport, landings to the airport. We have a Lawrenceville Arts Center, right, that holds many shows a year. Lawrenceville Arts Center, the Aurora Theater. We have a plethora of wonderful restaurants in the city, right?
Right.
We have an amphitheater. We host hundreds of shows a year, right? We just had the Lawrenceville Boogie. And for St. Patrick's Day, we had St. Patty's on Perry. We've had the Prince Review. We've had the 90s Review. We've had all these different concerts, the night market. We have a great schedule of events that happens in the city of Lawrenceville. What's going to be coming up on the 4th of July, we're going to have the prelude to the 4th. Always a spectacular.
Wow.
All right. Yeah. I'm doing a selfless promo here. But we always do a spectacular show, right? For the 4th of July. It's called Prelude to the 4th. We have thousands of people that take over the city and try to cram into our amphitheater area on the Lawrenceville lawn. And then there's music, there's food, there's so much. And then you have the spectacular fireworks show at the conclusion of that. So we are a city that's deserving of attention. We are a city that's deserving of attention. And so you want to say, and then, to add to that, we have a hotel, a Hilton Tapestry, the Lawrence, that will be ready with its doors open in summer of 2026, right?
Wow.
We have a 4-year college, one of the newest colleges in the university system of Georgia, Georgia Gwinnett College, one of the finest institutions led by Dr. Jan Joseph, right, who was on my Women's History Month panel. Right. So we have so much to offer as a city of Lawrenceville. We are the county seat. We are the capital of Gwinnett County, which is the second largest county in the state of Georgia, right? Out of 159 counties in the state, we are the second largest state, right? And Lawrenceville is the county seat, right? So we're about 204 years old. Our charter is 204 years old. So there's been a tremendous amount of growth in the city, right? And we're still growing. We're still adding. We're still proposing where to take Lawrenceville. But we want to do that with the residents as part of our stakeholders, right? So with the airport, we're having the meeting that I scheduled to figure out how we can increase the revenue of our businesses, how we can increase visibility of our businesses and foot traffic into these businesses. How can we increase ticket sales at the Lawrenceville Arts Center and the Aurora Theater? When the hotel is up in summer of 2026, how can we get those rooms filled, right? And I think there's about, if I'm not mistaken, about 120, 140 rooms, something like that, right? But it also gives an opportunity for job creation.
Yes.
Right?
Certainly.
When we can increase the flow, when we're talking about economic development, when you can increase the flow of traffic through a city, you're talking about more money being spent in the city, more traffic, more money, all right, more attention, right? And people not visiting for once or twice, but they're making Lawrenceville, right, a consistent stop. These flights are coming in. They're going to say, hey, well, we have a meeting with the county chair and we have a meeting with the Gwinnett Chamber and Nick Messino, who's doing a great job over there at the Gwinnett Chamber. So we have meetings with the county chair, Nicole Love Hendrickson and Nick Messino. But we're not here just to see Chairwoman Love Hendrickson and the chamber president, Nick Messino. We also want to stop in and we want to buy tickets to the Lawrenceville Arts Center. We're going to have dinner, right? We're going to have dinner at the steakhouse, or we're going to have dinner at one of the Italian restaurant or one of the restaurants in the city. Yeah. And then we're going to buy tickets to the Lawrenceville Arts Center. We're going to go watch a show. And then we're going to stay over and maybe visit one of the churches on Sunday and then fly back to Tennessee or Greenville, South Carolina, or Charlotte, North Carolina. That's what we want Lawrenceville to be. And I want to be a part of that. So economic development is one of the things that I'm looking to continue. The other thing is I want to, as a substitute teacher in the school system now, for the past 8 months, I'm getting an idea of how I can really help create some opportunities for young people, right? Building that connection stronger from my role as a city councilman and working with the teachers in the schools, and developing teen summits and teen mentoring programs and sessions, working with local area businesses and strengthening tutoring opportunities for our young people, right? So there's so much to go with that. And we have I don't know the number of schools that we have in the city, but we have 2 major high schools in the city. We have Central Gwinnett, we have Discovery, right? And we are now moving towards an annexation that will bring on, I think, 1 or 2 other high schools. So we're growing as a city. We're growing as a city. So we want, but as we grow, as we develop, we want the input of our residents. We want to make sure I want to make sure that I'm strengthening my engagement with residents. I have those who live in the city and those who do not live in the city that schedule coffee with me on Saturdays, because they have an interest in the city.
Right.
So we're growing in leaps and bounds. We have a great police department, a wonderful police department led by Chief John Mullen, who works with the community. He has different programs, Pizza with a Cop. You can schedule ride-alongs. You can, they have different programs where they're constantly engaging our community members. And I commend Chief Mullen because And I had, I'd like to say I had a hand in hiring him, because I was one of the council members that interviewed him, and we had the decision to hire him, right? He and his team are visible in our city. When we talk about security, we talk about the quality of life.
Right.
We talk about, making sure that, the community is having great relationships with our police department. Chief John Mullen and his officers are visible. They're at every event. We have bicycle cops, right, who cycle through the city. That increases security. So you can have an officer cycling through, not just in a car, right, but they're cycling through. That increases the engagement, right? So the brand of the police department is phenomenal in our city, And, we want to make sure that we're continuing to move in that direction,
Yes.
Yes. And there are also plans to take officers out of cars and have them walk through the communities,
Wow.
and engage residents, That helps to, de-escalate any tension between residents and the police officers,
Right.
because we know over the years it hasn't really been a great relationship, right, between resident and police. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can. And I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. I have pizza with the chief every now and then. We'll schedule pizza, pizza with Chief Mullen, so we sit down and we chop it up, we're just, we're two human beings. He has a uniform to wear. I have a council seat into which I sit to set laws for the city. But when you take all that away, we're just two individuals.
Right.
We're two individuals from different communities who can come together and discuss, how do we make Lawrenceville better? And I love having that relationship. I have meetings with our city manager. I have meetings with our assistant city manager. I have meetings with our director of economic development. I have meetings with other leaders in the city, with our local religious leaders. When I scheduled my health fair, the first annual health fair, it was at New Jerusalem Baptist Church, Wow. And I thank the staff, Pastor Collins and Miss Tracy, and all of those folks who really helped to make that health fair a success, because it's all about building relationships.
Yes.
You can't be a public servant, and if you're not empathetic, if you're not understanding, and if you're not building relationships. You got to build relationships. And I always tell my residents, please reach out to me. Reach out to me, because I will reach out to you. But if there's somehow, some way, there's something broken that we don't get to connect with one another, let's just reach out to me. And I'll be glad to sit and have a conversation with you. It could be over coffee. It could be over a glass of water, a slice of pizza. It doesn't matter. Right. I'm available. I work full time. I'm also a consultant. But you know what? I also don't have a car, so I got to find a way to get to a meeting. But I will get there.
Yeah.
I will get there. Yeah. There are different modes of transportation. I will get there.
Exactly.
Because my job is to make sure I serve you. I serve you well. And I listen to you. I understand what it is that your pain points, what it is that challenges you, and how we can work together as council and as resident, as business owners, to make sure that we are growing a Lawrenceville in which everyone has a place and which everyone feels confident and is happy with.
So when you say people should reach out to you, what methods would you recommend that they do?
I always say, excuse me, if you email me, now here's the thing about my emails. My personal goal is to get to my emails within 24 to 48 hours, right? Sure. Sometimes it might not be 24 to 48 hours. And let me tell you, the email inbox is crazy, right? We get a lot of reports from our police department, our deputy city manager, and other departments. And, we have to read through policies. And, we have a city council meeting tomorrow night. So I'm reading through all those rezoning reports and so on and so forth. So we get a lot of that constantly. Your email inbox is being hit with so much, right? So if you don't hear from me within 24 to 48 hours, I'll give my number. Look, I'm public. I'm public. You can Google me and you can find me. So I don't have a problem giving out my number.
Okay.
Right? 404-587-3949. And again, I'll say it again. 404-587-3949. All right. Now, don't call me to solicit any type of service or anything like that, but call me and let's talk seriously about Lawrenceville. You can also reach me at austin.thompson@lawrencevillega.org. Okay. That's my email address. I'll say it again. austin.thompson@lawrencevillega.org. All right. I'm on Facebook, Austin for Lawrenceville. You can catch me on Facebook. And those are the primary modes of communication. But if you call me or if you email me, please text me. Text me and say, hey, Councilman Thompson, I just sent you an email. Councilman Thompson, I would like to know if we can get together for coffee.
Yeah.
I tell people that I read text messages because the phone is always with me.
Right.
I'm managing 2 phones right now. I have a phone for the city and I have my personal phone. All right. But sometimes you miss things, It's easy to miss things, because we have so much that's going on. And I work a full-time job. Plus, I'm a consultant, and I'm mentoring and I'm doing so many different things outside of my council duties. But I want to make sure I get your information. I want to make sure that I'm getting to you. So just make sure, call me, text me, email me. But most important, send me a text message. Let me know that you're trying to reach me.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
See, I'm glad you're such an open book. Like, you make it easy for people to reach out to you. You make yourself accessible.
Yes, ma'am.
And focused on building relationships across the board.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
so
ma'am.
that is a valuable characteristic
Yes,
in
ma'am.
someone that's up for re-election.
Yes, ma'am. And, I look forward to serving in this capacity for another 4 years. When you're elected to a position, whether it's 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, and if you're a U.S. senator, you set out very ambitiously. I have a vision plan. Vote for AustinThompson.com. The vision plan is not ready. The new vision plan is not ready. But I created a vision plan when I first ran. You have all these ambitious goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have all these ambitious goals. But it takes time. It takes time. We have things that haven't really materialized yet, and we've been discussing it for 2 years. But it's just because decisions and other things have to fall into place,
right,
before it's materialized, right? So I need another 4 years.
Yes.
I would love to have another 4 years.
Yes.
To roll out some of the things I didn't get to roll out, in the previous 4 years, but then some new ideas that I'm bringing forward.
Right.
Working with businesses, right? Doing business in the city of Lawrenceville, right? That's one of the initiatives I do during National Small Business Week. Working with our local elected officials, working more with our local elected officials, our county commissioners. I'm sitting down with Representative Sam Park at some point. We have to discuss how we can get small business funding for more women in business, right? More minorities in business. Businesses classified as disadvantaged. How are we going to push that? How are we going to get funding and into the hands, money into the hands, working capital into the hands of our business owners? Our small businesses generate the economy.
Right.
They create jobs. 66% of all net jobs are created by our small business community, right? So we need our small businesses to survive. We need our small businesses to be properly funded so they can scale. We need them to keep their doors open. We need them to hire people, man. We need people hired.
Yes.
We need people working. That's the only way you're going to have an economy that's healthy.
Yeah.
If people have money in their hands to go out and spend, if we can create opportunities for funding, at the state level. So I'm looking to work more with our state representatives and bringing that forward. I've seen several women-owned businesses close in our city, and it's not pleasing. So we need to make sure that we're supporting our businesses, our local business owners. We're supporting our residents. with discussions on affordable housing and introducing plans for affordable housing. I have already proposed some discussion on building a community of tiny homes, right? The micro housing, right? Where you have maybe a 600 square foot, 700 square foot. If you're just a single person or you're a retiree, you're living by yourself, but you don't want to spend $400,000 for a house or $500,000 for a house, right? You want to buy a smaller house, a scaled down living space, because it's just you and your husband, you and your mate, right? So I've already proposed that. So I want to continue working on that. I want to make sure that our young people in our community, our parents need help. Our parents need help. Our teachers need help. The school system needs help. I'm in the schools every day, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. We have some of the smartest young people that I engage, but they just need a little bit of support.
Yeah.
So I want to bring that to the community. I want to bring more of that. I enjoy working with our staff. We have some of the best staff ever. I'm not just saying that because I work with them. I'm keeping it real. We have some of the best staff. They're always getting awards, and we're always recognizing people at our city council meetings. So it's great to be in Lawrenceville. It's great to be a public servant in Lawrenceville, a city councilman in Lawrenceville. But I need to make sure that I'm doing what I'm elected to do for the residents of Lawrenceville. So that's why I'm going to increase my engagement, find more ways to engage with individuals, and making sure that, hey, I am the representative they wanted in that seat. That's Austin E. Thompson Jr.
Wow. Can't say anything else after that. That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, you've heard it from the man himself. Consider him for this next election because he has so much more to bring. Another 4 years, he says, right? So let's go for it.
Another 4 years. Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for giving me that insight and taking me through your journey, taking us through your journey.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I appreciate you.
My pleasure. All right, everyone. You know who to vote for. Let's do it. Have a good one.
Thank you.